Welcome. What is up? Welcome to the Mixer. I'm your host, RC. I'm joined by my co-host here, Jeff. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. It's glad to be back.
You're looking good. I hear you're beachside, so living the life, huh?
Beach camping for, what we got here, today's Thursday, so we got here Tuesday. Drove down from Idaho last Friday, drove up to Vegas to see my dad on Sunday, drove back to San Diego on Tuesday, out to Coronado to beach camp, and we're here till Monday. So
nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
Glad you're in town again. Well, before we get into the show, first things first, do not forget to like and subscribe to us on our podcast feeds on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts. We have our YouTube channel, The Mixer, and all our social channels at FCY Mixer. Twitter's the primary one. We got an Instagram. We got a Facebook. So go find us, rate and review, share around, spread the word. As always, we appreciate you. And the next part, we always tilt. We always got some tilts. Jeff, do you have any tilts? Because I got some.
I'll let you take this away. As I just said, life is pretty good for me right now. Fully vaccinated, so not worried about a whole lot at the moment.
Yeah, it must be tough being a vax straight white male. I can imagine the hardships.
Exactly. Yeah, we're the most persecuted group in the country. So
yeah, I mean, I got plenty to complain about right now. So I'll even out the curve for us. Well, I mean, not really. So humble brag here. We're going to have our name on a car at Le Mans, which is in a few weeks, 24-hour race. So they had like some fan sponsorship thing. About 1,000 people signed up by purchasing something in the team store or whatever. And anyway, at FC Mixer is going to be on a car at Le Mans going for the win. So those cars are, the winners are they put a clear coat on them and they're put in a museum. So fingers crossed that our name will be in a museum. We can go look at it someday. So, I mean, that's a little tilting because, I feel like the pressure's on for our car to perform now. The other tilt, I mean, it's two things. The Padres, what the hell's going on? I've been urging caution for a while, not too worried about them, dropping series that they did before to like the Diamondbacks and the Rockies before the All-Star break, like early season. But, it's gotten to the point, I think they're 7-8 games out of first now. They lost to the Marlins yesterday. Tatis is hurt. What the hell, Padres? What the damn hell? I've been urging caution, saying, it'll be fine. This team's good. And thanks for backing me up. Jeff, do you have any thoughts on the Padres for this tilt?
Well, I'm pretty sure you went to the game yesterday. And
another tilt.
Yeah, you're probably the reason they lost.
They got shut out by the freaking Marlins.
Yeah, I mean, the Padres have had a rough year and a half in this, and I say that, granted, like they've had a great season overall. It sucks that they're in third in the division. If they were in a couple other divisions, they'd be leading them. They just happen to have the Giants and the Dodgers in their division this year, so kind of a rough go of it. But when you look at the team and you look at some of the injuries they've had, to even be in some kind of contention is a little surprising, right? Seems like half the rotation has been on the IL or out. Haven't even had Clevenger at all this year because of what happened last year. Snell, maybe he's finding his footing. I know his last outing was pretty good. But yeah, I mean, I just think if you're a Padre fan, you got to look at all the injuries that you've had and just think, things could be much, much worse, right? So you got a pretty good team. You're probably going to make the playoffs, barring, a complete collapse. And once you get to the playoffs, you got a chance. So,
yeah. they got a series against the Diamondbacks, 4-game series that starts today. Then they go to the Rockies and then the Phillies, and then they come back, I think, against the Dodgers and Angels to wrap up the month. So, it's a turning point. It's, that they got to start, they got to clean house on these freaking cupcakes, get within striking distance, and then they do have a good set of games against both the Dodgers and the Giants at the end of this month and into next month. So they got to figure it out. Now's the time to figure it out. This kind of road series that they got is, I think it's going to tell us a lot of things about, if they're going to be that, what is that, the 5 spot? And how did the playoffs work now? Is it a 1-game play-in? Is it a 3-game series? What's the deal? Do you know?
I thought it was just a 1 game, but it might be 3 games. I'm not 100% sure off the head.
I think it's 1 game, and so 1 game against the Dodgers. I don't know who they throw out there, but we have Darvish. So, and the thing about the Dodgers is they have like the worst record in baseball against winning teams or something, or like the highest or the lowest win percentage against winning teams, if that makes any sense. So anyway, they struggle against good competition, and the Padres have proven that they're up to the task. Hopefully some arms get healthy. Hopefully Tatis, maybe with a transition to the outfield, maybe he's less likely to end his season early. He can put off that shoulder surgery. What do you think about Tatis playing in the outfield? I've been all for it, regardless of his errors and stuff. I'm just like, if he can go in the outfield and, there's a hole there, he's such an athlete. He can make a difference on the team, and they could bring somebody else into shortstop. And then there was that Union Tribune pick that, shared around the world where he's robbing a batting practice home run on the Petco porch. And yeah, I think everybody, once they saw that picture, they're like, all right, let's do this. What are your thoughts about it?
I've said for a couple of years, I thought Tatis should move off of shortstop. He's never been particularly great there. It's both a blessing and a curse. Manny's in San Diego, because Tatis, the logical position move that we've seen happen many times is from short to third, right? And we've seen decent shortstops become really good third basemen. And Tatis is athletic enough that seems like it would make a lot of sense. Moving to the outfield, I think as long as you don't throw him in center, makes a lot of sense. Center with a guy like Tatis, he's still going to be diving around, jumping everywhere, and your injury risk is probably just the same. I think you move him to a corner. I don't know how good his arm is. Maybe right field or left field. I don't think it really matters. But if I'm the Padres, we don't have great advanced stats for defense to truly know what defensive plays matter. But if I'm the Padres, I would essentially tell him to who cares about defense? Your real value is on offense. We don't need you diving and hurting yourself, right?
Yeah. That left field wall in Petco makes me a little nervous. So I think I would prefer him to be in right field. His arm is strong. It seems like the challenge that he has is getting, his accuracy on throws, which still would be an issue for an outfielder, but not too much. Anywho, they have C.J. Abrams in the minors, who's probably their top prospect. He's a shortstop. So, and Kim is very serviceable as a defensive shortstop. He can hit okay, but I think he's hitting around 200. And obviously Cronenworth is kind of interchangeable with Frazier there. So they have a lot of flexibility in the middle infield as far as the future goes. And, outfield has kind of been a weakness. Bringing him, pushing him to the outfield is not the worst thing. He does make some awesome plays, but there'll still be awesome plays to be made in the outfield too. All right.
Exactly. And there's so many. The Padres have so many infielders. You can figure out, shortstop, second base by moving guys around. But the outfield, as you said, has been a struggle for a couple of years. So if he could shore up one of those positions, it would make a lot of sense.
Yeah. The other tilt that I have from go ahead.
Real quick, I just have to throw this in there. My wife is a huge Will Myers fan, and she said Will Myers can solve all the Padres' outfield problems.
Well, I mean, he hasn't. So, but I mean, I appreciate the opinion. So the other tilt that I have from going to the Padre game, and I don't know if, again, this is Rob versus time. By the way, it's been a while. I mean, it's the very old man thing to do, complain about how old you are. But going to the game, I don't know what happened. If it's the quarantine, if it's having a kid and changing your perspective. But I mean, just walking around, like, or if it's just because the Padres have a different fan base dynamic now. But I mean, I felt like I was walking around PB with a whole bunch of day drinkers out there in fashion that I don't understand. So it made me feel very aged, and I didn't feel like I was too out of touch with things, but man, it's a problem. I mean, you're at the beach. What are you getting the same vibes or what? I mean, you're a whole 6 months younger, so much more
I'm
wizened.
going to say that the crowd at the games has not changed, and that you have changed, and your perspective on things has changed. Because I remember going to games, whether it be Padre games, Charger games, and the crowd there has always felt like a PB type situation where people are just there to get drunk, have fun, do that kind of stuff. And, I think that you're realizing that now because I believe you took your daughter, right, to her first game,
yeah, I did,
or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I imagine you're probably being a little more responsible. And so you're seeing everyone else do that and you're not participating. So it really stood out to you. Is really what I think, because to me, that's like the essence of people that go to sporting events, is they want to be that crowd. So
I hear you. Yeah, man, I felt attacked. I felt attacked by the vibe, if that's possible. Anywho, all right, let's get into the show, the normal part of the show. I mean, we already talked Padres, but tilts are done. We need to talk about the Hungarian Grand Prix. I know you don't have too much time, and I know this is probably like a week late, but we had a crazy race, and it all started with the rundown in the first corner. Lewis got pole. Verstappen was third, and Bottas was second.
Yep.
And I think Perez was fourth. So Mercedes, Red Bull.
And Lando was fifth, I believe. Yeah.
Yep. Rain wet the track. We finally got the rain. I said, pray for rain. We got the rain. And so going into the first corner, Bottas got a terrible start off the jump and was instantly behind, I think, both Red Bulls. I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've rewatched the race. And then just goes in a little too hot into the first corner, hits both Red Bulls. It takes out Verstappen and Perez, and then just chaos ensued behind.
Yeah, well, it looked like, so I've watched this about 1 million times. And so Lewis gets a great start. He is just away from everyone and around the corner before anything happens, it looks like. Max gets a decent start. He's kind of ahead of everyone else. Perez and Lando get really good starts as well, along with Valtteri getting a terrible start. And so Perez goes around Valtteri on the outside. Lando goes around him on the inside. And, Valtteri after the race just said he missed his braking point and all that. But if you watch from his onboard camera, Lando and goes around him and then comes back in front, and that causes Valtteri to hit his brakes real quick to not run into the back of him. And I think that's really the moment where Valtteri kind of missed his braking point. He really just needed to continue braking from that point. But he just hits them and then kind of lets off, and then doesn't realize that like Lando and everyone else are slowing down to make this turn, right? And he goes right into the back of Lando, who then goes into the side of Max, right? And destroys Max's barge board, I think is what it's called. You know, from there, Valtteri caroms off. It's like they were playing pool. And Valtteri caroms off, hits Sergio Perez, taking him out. You know, then further on down, Lance Stroll, trying to avoid look like some of the accident, cuts extreme inside and cuts the corner and takes out Charles Leclerc, right?
I don't know what
was looking like
Stroll was thinking.
Yeah, to me, it looked like Stroll knew he couldn't do anything on the outside and he couldn't brake enough. So it looked like he just tried to cut the corner. And in doing that, you know, like it just seemed like a dumb move, right? Like even rewatching it, it's like, dude, you're just in a bad spot. You just kind of have to take it, right? Obviously, the winners of this were Esteban Ocon, who made it through unscathed, Sebastian Vettel, who got a terrible start, but luckily for him, got a terrible start and made it through unscathed. And then obviously Lewis looked like he was going to have an easy win after just this first corner, right? It just, you know, all his contenders were taken out. You know, even Daniel Ricciardo, who was in probably the McLaren might be the third fastest car on the grid. And Ricciardo had a bunch of damage, right? So even though he was the McLaren that was left to race, he couldn't really do a whole lot. You know, so after that first corner, I think after the first lap, 5 cars were out because of the first corner, and then Mazepin was out because Kimi Räikkönen got released early in the pits.
Yeah, it was just utter mayhem. I was kind of watching the first corner incident while you're going through it, and I mean, it was just a recipe for disaster. There's a title chase going on, 2 rivals. It's a track where you can't pass really, so there's added emphasis to try to get something done on the first lap, if not done in the first corner, and it was wet. And I mean, looking at it, it looks like Hamilton got off to a good start, and then he broke a little early to kind of back up the Red Bulls who were behind him, and then that's just what caused like the train effect, where it's just, you know, if you could picture a train with slack in the carts and then just, you know, kind of bumping into each other. He didn't do anything wrong. He's in the lead. And to be honest, these drivers should be tiptoeing into a sharp turn 1 while it's wet. So, but I mean, unfortunate for some of the guys in there. I mean, this is not a Max Verstappen podcast unless you're Jeff. And, you know, no tears were shed over his predicament. I feel a little bummed for Sergio Perez because this is a Perez special. This race would have been, and obviously the Ferrari too of Leclerc, you know, he was in a good spot. He got knocked out. Pierre Gasly was caught up in that too, and he was up at the front of the grid. But and I mean, as you mentioned, there was a red flag shortly after, so that means a restart. And somewhere between the cleanup and the restart, it stopped raining and it's hot, so the track dried out really quick, and there was radio communications to the pit boxes going to the grid. I think it was Russell on the radio said, you know, looking at the track, everybody's going to go pit for dries. And then everybody pit for dries except Lewis Hamilton. Leader of the race, went out there and did the most hilarious restart ever. I mean, he was the only car on the grid and the lights went out. It was comical. It was like something out of a movie. Yeah, and then everybody else had to start from the pit lane. There was that accident that you mentioned with Kimi Räikkönen getting released by Alfa Romeo too soon and taking out Mazepin. Yeah, and I mean, Hamilton pit at the end of the first lap, and then it was, I mean, George Russell was running second, but he had to give some of the spots back, and then Esteban Ocon, it was Esteban Ocon, Sebastian Vettel, and who was third? Was it Alonso? Or was it, I can't even remember who was running third at that time, but I mean, it was just,
yeah, I don't remember,
ridiculous. And then, so Hamilton went to the back and he started his charge back through the grid. Verstappen was still in the race. He was missing a big chunk of his car, the barge board. Like you said, a bunch of aerodynamic pieces. He ended up finishing out of the points. Hamilton charged back and finished third. He was able to get around Sainz. And Alonso held him up, did some awesome driving, and may or may not have preserved the win for his teammate Ocon. Spoiler alert, Ocon won this race. He was battling Sebastian Vettel for much of the race. Vettel had a bad pit stop that kind of cost him because, I mean, he was in the pits about a second longer. If he would have gotten out sooner, he would have been able to undercut Ocon, but he wasn't able to. Also, Vettel pushing burned too much fuel. I don't know if the team short fueled him expecting rain or what, but he didn't have the liter of fuel to test after the race. So he was disqualified. So the finishing order ends up being Ocon, Hamilton, and Sainz getting boosted to the third spot because of that Vettel DQ. Jeff, I'm just curious, for those people who may be new to F1, do you know what the fuel requirement is for or the purpose of it?
I read about this, and I feel like it's because teams used to put additives in their fuel and then would burn it all off so that they couldn't test it and find them at the end of the race or something like that. So then Formula One requires a leader so they can just make sure that there's nothing extra in it so the teams aren't getting an advantage from it. Am I right or am I wrong?
Yeah, you're spot on. Just to give your explanation a little more color, the fuel is standardized. Every Formula One car runs on the same fuel. I think it's Shell high octane or some BS. Yeah. And before, like in the 70s, 80s, I don't know if it was into 90s, but the teams used to be able to come up with their own fuel mixes. And so that was an extra expense that, gave the top dollar teams an advantage. And so to kind of level the playing field, they removed that. They also used to do that with tires. Teams used to have their own, they could bring their own tires, and it was, it wasn't just Pirelli. It was, a whole range of options, and there would be all kinds of testing and anywho, but there is still the possibility where they can enhance fuel by some sort of additive. I mean, the simplest way to explain it would be like, imagine NOS. Like if you had a NOS bottle, you can run your car better. But anywho, and yeah, they do need a bleeder requirement because, I mean, these guys are super high tech. They can kind of chemically engineer something. So I don't know, it would float to the top. And once you get to the bottom of the fuel tank, there would only be trace amounts or no amount. So anyway, That's why they require a leader to test. And when they tried to pull that, they weren't able to. He also stopped on track, and so did another driver, which they're not supposed to do. They're supposed to make it all the way back to the pit stall.
Ocon did as well.
Yeah, but
and George Russell, I believe.
I mean, because Hamilton got busted for that a few years back. I don't know if that's something that they'll kind of look past because of the situation. It was a wet, dry race. So,
Right.
teams were probably, anyway, I haven't read into that, but they're actually not supposed to stop on track. They're supposed to drive it all the way around. Anywho, I mean, great race. It sets up. I mean, we're at the summer break right now. We're going to go into Spa in a few weeks, and man, I mean, the table is set because that track, there's usually weather, or it's probably the best chance for weather affecting it.
Yeah.
Rain, and on top of that, you have La Source, which is the tightest turn one. And then you have the longest run into the next braking zone. So whatever you're doing that morning, cancel your plans. You're going to want to watch that turn one and that first lap, really the whole race. But I mean, I'm predicting fireworks into turn one. You've raced that track on the game, right, Jeff?
Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun. You get going real fast.
Yeah. So I mean, Hamilton's has the momentum right now. It kind of made two trademark drives. I mean, one of them, he kind of just got to cruise because he took Verstappen out. And then the other one, his teammate did it. But I mean, he had to battle from the back and he finished second. And that's the kind of things you need to do if you're going to win the title. So, yeah, I'm stoked. I'm excited, more excited, probably as excited I've been for a race since the 2008 finale. And that race was in Brazil, and the Nicole Scherzinger jumping up and down race. So yeah, watch F1 if you're not. So Jeff, I know we don't have you for too much longer. Which topic do you want to cover since you have to dip? We got Messi, we got the Olympics, we got the NFL. What's on your mind?
I would like to cover Messi in the Olympics, or Messi in the NFL. I didn't watch much of the Olympics. It wasn't my thing this year, to be honest.
Yeah, the U.S. won, and everybody's making a too big of a deal about the Simone Biles thing, but we stand behind Simone.
Yeah,
I think we can summarize it there. All right, let's do Messi first. So he's was supposed to re-sign with Barcelona, and then Barcelona's like, sorry, fam, we don't have enough money. So he's leaving Barca to join PSG with Neymar, Mbappe, that asshole Sergio Ramos, Angel Di Maria. I mean, the super team. What do you think about this move, Jeff? Are you sad Messi's days at Barcelona are over?
I don't really care that his days are over there because, like, we see soccer players move all the time. So that's not too surprising that he would leave there at some point. I'm sad for the way it happened. If it had happened last year, I think, he clearly didn't want to be there last year. Essentially forced the team president to resign or quit or whatever and get replaced. And then this year, it seemed like he really wanted to be there. So kind of sucks. I can't say. I mean, I'm really surprised that La Liga did not find a way to keep Messi because it feels like it hurts their brand overall. The thing that I don't think the average person thinks about is that when you have these stars in leagues, right, when they leave those leagues, they take people with them, right? They're not saying that La Liga is going to, collapse or anything like that, but they lost Ronaldo. Now they're losing Messi. These guys have a huge star power. Like, I was reading something the other day, or this morning, I think. Messi signed with PSG, and within one day sold almost 1 million jerseys or something like that. And it made, based on the percentage that like PSG keeps, they made like $10 or $12 million in one day. just after signing him, and they're paying him $40 million this year, right? So they essentially made a quarter of his contract for this year. That is the kind of power that you're losing as a team for Barcelona, as a league for La Liga, right? So really surprised that happened. I don't think there's a better place for him to go. Based on his age, his size, obviously he's still great, still one of the best players in the world. I don't know if I really want to see him in the Premier League right now, just because it's extremely physical. I think his chances of getting hurt are much higher there than they are in whatever France calls their top league. I think it's Ligue 1 or something like that. Yeah. Also, like PSG, he doesn't really have to be the guy if he doesn't want to. They have Mbappe, they have Neymar. They can all work together. They can all take turns. Obviously, we've seen him and Neymar work extremely well together before. Messi's never really had a problem working with other superstars. So I'm excited for it. Obviously, like, their regular season should probably just be a cakewalk to the title. But Champions League and things like that will be very exciting, especially if PSG happens to play Barcelona, right? They'll both be in that tournament together, and we'll see how the draw comes out. But that would be an interesting draw. But yeah, I mean, that's really my thoughts. Like, I don't think there was a better place for him, and I'm just excited to see what he does. There's really no pressure going there because they were already good, and they already have other superstars. So
yeah, they're going to wreck. PSG games have always been fun to watch when they had Zlatan and Cavani there. I used to love watching their Champions League games. I feel like we're not getting the whole story because, like you said, couldn't the Spanish league have gotten something done to have him stay? Couldn't Barca have got something done? I don't know. Ligue 1 has just got a deal with Amazon to carry their games. So, I mean, I don't know. I just sense some freaking Illuminati media stuff going on with this arrangement where, the team looks like they did everything they could. Messi looks like he can did everything he could. Everybody's hand is clean, and it's just like a cash grab for another league on a super team, But
yeah.
I mean, that's just how sports are done. The Premier League guys can tell you that, the American football is a business, or all other professional leagues are a business, but soccer is a sport. I mean, a little naive. Right. I am glad though that Messi was able to hoist the cup for country when since they just won the what's the CONMEBOL Cup called? I'm totally spacing on it. The Copa America. Messi won the Copa America for Argentina. All those Barca fans that have been probably rooting for him to get that box checked, at the time they were thinking he's coming back to Barca, so they got to celebrate that to the full extent. And so that'll kind of be how a lot of Barca fans remember his final days, is watching him in that cup and getting the win and getting in penalties, and he nailed his penalty kick. Like, he exercised all his demons to win that one. So I am stoked for that. So let's talk NFL, man. So we got training camps in action. I think there's like a full slate of preseason games today, which
I think there's 2 tonight, and then the rest of them are between Saturday and Sunday, if I remember this schedule correctly. I was looking at it the other day.
Okay, good deal. Well, we got players on field. We already had the Hall of Fame game, which I have not seen any of. So we got some QB battles to talk about. There's Justin Fields versus Andy Dalton, which everybody's super stoked for. there's a mock battle between Trevor Lawrence and Gardner Minshew. We got Jameis versus Taysom Hill, and then obviously probably the big one is Trey Lance versus Garoppolo. And I guess you could say Cam Newton versus more athletic Tom Brady. Why can't I think of his name? Alabama. Mac Jones. I wanted to say Max. Anyway, apologize. It's still, I mean, I haven't drafted him in any underdog leagues, so, I don't care too much about the Patriots backup.
Yeah.
But, I mean, what's on your mind, Jeff? What are you watching with these quarterback battles? Anything that stands out to you?
I mean, for me, I just really care about the rookies. Trey Lance, seeing what he does. We know what Garoppolo is, and realistically, I don't think we're in this position if Garoppolo completes that pass to Emmanuel Sanders in the Super Bowl. That was like a wide open touchdown. He's obviously good enough to get the 49ers to a Super Bowl. And if you're good enough to get there, you're good enough to win, is my opinion. Now, they didn't win, but Jimmy's also been hurt the last couple of years. So in my mind, if Trey Lance shows that he can play at all in the preseason, and his training camp so far has gone extremely well from what I've read, if Trey Lance looks good in games, I think if you're Kyle Shanahan, you just give him the keys and just go for it. Like, you don't trade up to sit a guy like that, in my mind. The other one I'm really interested in is Justin Fields. I know this is the Bears. Anthony's a huge fan. And Nagy has been saying, like, no, we're sticking with Andy Dalton. Well, the last few reports I've seen out of Bears camp are that Justin Fields looks incredible. So, obviously it's training camp. We'll see what happens when they're playing other teams and all that. But, I'm a fan of get your quarterbacks on the field as soon as possible. Give them as many reps as possible. You have them especially if you draft them in the first round, you have them for 5 years. And give them 2 or 3 years to figure it out, right? Like, if they can figure it out, great. If they can't, if they show any signs, you just give them chances, right? Like the Bills did with Josh Allen. Josh Allen wasn't a great passer. He's never been a great passer. And then what happened? He got to, what was last year 3 for him? And he just balled out. They built the offense around him, brought him a number 1 wide receiver. And Josh Allen, for a lot of the season, looked like he was a top 2 or 3 quarterback in the league, I think you can do that with a lot of these guys. And I think that Trey Lance and Justin Fields could be almost exactly like that. Maybe, Trey Lance is obviously on a better team. The 49ers should be really good. And I think he presents a unique option for them in that he can run. And, they're very good at getting guys, Shanahan's very good at getting guys out in the open, letting guys work with the ball, and throwing Trey Lance into that mix, I think could put the 49ers into that top tier of teams. It still baffles me that Urban Meyer hasn't just committed to Trevor Lawrence. The fact that he even hints or says that there's a battle between Lawrence and Gardner Minshew, I don't have high hopes for Urban Meyer. I could see him being gone in a year, a la Nick Saban. But that's just my thought. Other than that, I don't know how good Mac Jones is. I've heard good things about a couple of the New England receivers. Jacoby Myers sounds like he's having a good camp. N'Keal Harry sounds like he might be putting it together a little bit. I think Cam Newton's still probably when healthy, a pretty good starting quarterback. So that'll be interesting where they go. And then Zach Wilson, by everything I've read, is having an atrocious training camp, and so far looks to be an atrocious pick from the Jets, which is not all that surprising. I hope Zach Wilson can figure it out because I have drafted him on a few teams, and it would be nice if he were good, because I could imagine myself drafting him on a few more because he's available so late. But right now I don't have high hopes for the Jets at all. So that's kind of my take on the QB battles and where I think they're at.
If we were to assume all camp reports are true and assume, make the assumption of rational coaching, a lot of those rookies are going to be in Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson by default, Trevor Lawrence, which isn't even really a battle. And I haven't really heard reports on Mac Jones, but just going off of how bad Cam Newton looked last season, you would assume it's him, but these coaches have their own agendas and, they have front offices instructing them on who to play in some instances. So we're going to get some sort of split. I mean, it sounds like Nagy's really committed to Andy Dalton. The wonderful and all-knowing Liz Loza said that, it's going to be Dalton. So nonetheless, it's interesting. And then the battle in New Orleans for the lulz is hilarious. I hope it's Jameis. I mean, I just hope it's a cluster. I hope it's back and forth all season. And, we have games where Taysom Hill throws for 57 yards and the Saints win like 35 to 17. And then we have games where Jameis is out there, throws for 500 yards and the Saints lose, 20-23 to 42. They just get blown out. So either way, it's going to be entertaining. And I am for that entertainment. Kirk Cousins, speaking of quarterbacks, wants to build a plexiglass room in the quarterback room. That way he does not have to get vaccinated. How hilarious is this, Jeff?
Yeah, this whole situation just baffles me. At least I don't know who he talks to. I don't know what sources he has.
I believe it's his family, judging by the internet.
I think so too. But I was reading something the other day that you're like 300% more likely to die if you don't have the vaccine, right? Based on like the latest numbers. And it just baffles me that we've had over 1 billion people vaccinated at this point across the world. With, I'm sure there's been some side effects or some negative effects, but very, very minimal and less than what the virus is doing on its own, right? So just kind of baffles me, especially when I think the latest numbers from around the league are that 80% of guys in the league are vaccinated. And, if you're a close contact and you're not vaccinated and your team forfeits, it's essentially they're blaming the people that aren't vaccinated. And I could just see this going real bad for the Vikings, depending on how things break. And I could also see this going real bad for Kirk Cousins in the future, depending on how he plays and stuff. If he has a bad season, let's say they do play all 17 games, but he doesn't play well, they don't do very well. His contract's up. I don't know if it's up this year or next year, but let's say his contract's up. If you're on a team, do you want to re-sign him or do you want to sign him? He's clearly not, it doesn't seem to be the most team first guy, right? So, just kind of my thoughts. It just baffles me the way some people think about this, but everyone's their own individual. That's the beauty of the world that we live in. But I just think he's making the wrong decisions and he's probably talking to the wrong people.
Yeah, I saw his coach, I think, publicly said he doesn't understand why players won't get the vaccine. And some of the stuff that they tell him is some real YouTube conspiracy stuff. So, I mean, if you got your head coach saying that and your quarterback, is talking about putting plexiglass in the quarterback room, I mean, obviously we didn't think through what he was saying, but after researching a little bit into the Cousins family and their beliefs, his dad is a pastor or priest. I'm not 100% familiar with the terminology, who's had some interesting sermons, let's say. I feel like I finally have an explanation for that look in Kirk Cousins' eyes, like that kind of psychopath, like oblivious to the world type of gaze. And I'm like, oh, I get it now. Anyway, so yeah, Kirk Cousins, there's going to be no shortage of COVID storylines for the NFL. So that'll be great for our brand, I guess. We got the Cowboys on Hard Knocks. We got the return of Zeke, Slim Zeke, Physical Elliott, as I've heard him called. And Joe Burrow, Sleepy Joe Burrow looks like trash, which is not good for my backup team.
Hey, hold on. Stop the Joe Burrow slander. I was reading something this morning that, he didn't look great the first week of camp or whatever. Looked like he was struggling, but the last couple days I've read he's coming on. He looks like he's getting back to where he was last year. I just think we got to give him time to get back from the knee injury.
This is the capital J's and the high T consortium collaborating to spread false news, because they were pounding the table, absolutely pounding and hammering the table. You have to draft a tackle for Joe Burrow for your franchise quarterback. You have to get Penei Sewell. You have to get him. And then the Bengals did the low T move of taking a generational wide receiver. And, this is how they get their vengeance. This is how they change the narrative of the market.
I'm actually with you on this, because I did see a couple reports the other day, people talking about, Jamar Chase is struggling to get separation and this and that. And then I saw a few people show training camp video of him like dusting their corners. And I'm like, who am I believing here? Like, am I going to believe the person that's writing it, or am I going to believe the video I'm watching? So, that was interesting. But
yeah, we are believers in Joe Burrow and disbelievers in the false news that's being spread around. I mean, that offense could be awesome they got Chase, they got Boyd, they got Higgins, they got Mixon, Burrow, obviously. So it'll be fun watching my B team, probably get blown out, but the future is bright. Anything else? Oh, the other thing I just want to bring out, we need to freaking crowdfund a big dog ticket, because I really want to do the big dog. I mean, I might just throw it down and give it a run, but I just feel like it'd be epic saying we have a big dog team.
I'm down. Let's figure it out.
All right. What else you got on the NFL? Any talking points I missed here?
There's really.
A lot. Yeah, there's a lot. There's, like Saquon, is he hurt? Is he not hurt? Dak, is he hurt? Is he not hurt? There's a lot of that stuff going on. And, with the first preseason weekend going into full swing, we'll have more clarity on that. So we'll be able to talk better instead of kind of just theorize or hypothesize about what the situation's going on. The last thing, Justin Herbert getting the veteran QB treatment, will not participate in any preseason games, which, thank God. I have that guy on nearly all of my best ball teams. I'm really overexposed on Justin Herbert.
Hold on. On that point, who else is getting that treatment that I just saw? This might be a surprise, but Daniel Jones is also getting sitting out week 1 treatment.
Well, in their defense, like, who do they have after Daniel Jones? So
Saquon.
Well, do they? They're saying like they're optimistic they'll have him by week 3. It's like
he'll be back. He's playing week 1.
Yeah. Yes. A writer said that, they're just trying to make him into like some freaking superhero figure when he comes out and plays and on week 1. So we'll see. I mean, the guy has, somebody said, they had a picture of his quads and they said, this dude has straight T-Rex legs. And it's all I can think about is just like the muscle on his his lower body. It's otherworldly, worldly.
Yeah.
And wordly. Yeah. All right. We good, man? Anything else?
Yep. I think we're good.
All right. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the NFL preseason. There's no Formula One this weekend or next weekend. We do have, if you want your racing fix, we have Le Mans testing this week. I think there might be qualifying actually, and then the race is next weekend. I mean, again, very, very niche, but it's good stuff to watch. All right, let's get out of here, Jeff. Time for PF Chang's.
Sounds good. Maybe next week. I'm still here, and I won't be at the beach. So
sweet. Yeah, we'll make it happen.
All right.
For Jeff, for me. See you next week.
See ya.